Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mmakgosi Chaane-Pule. I'm a Career Indaba board member. And today I've stepped out of the boardroom to engage on all things youth, youth employment, upskilling, and ensuring that young people access the right opportunities. So today it's just going to be sharing information, and I'm very, very excited about the show. I am somewhat nervous. It's the first time that I've done radio, so please bear with me in the first few minutes so that I can settle in. A little bit about myself. So I am a Pretorian. I tell you, Tshwane municipality needs to pay me for every time I have to say that I'm a Pretorian. Born and raised in a township called Ga-Rankuwa, which is situated on the northern side of Pretoria. I am the youngest of 3 siblings. I've got 2 elder brothers. And no, I don't have last-born tendencies. And apart from that, my mom is still around. My dad is deceased. And we are currently now based in Mabopane. So to people who are listening from Mabopane family flow, I am a wife to Ofense-Pule, a mother of a Pigeon pair, Kgositsile as well as Matla. It's a boy and a girl. And apart from family life, the things that I like to do, I love to read, I love to run. I also love talk radio. I do have my favorite radio station. In fact, one of my favorite slots, it's currently on 702 with Clement Manyatela, and that's one of my favorite shows. And yeah, really look forward to today's show. Professionally, I'm a social worker, trained social worker, studied at the University of Pretoria. And because we're talking about all things career today, I think it's important for me to give you that background. I'm a trained social worker, studied, practiced, and later on in life, I just decided that it's important for me to be in the development sector. Not to say that it's not in the development sector, just by the way, but I thought to transition. So I am in the development sector. Happy for you to go through to my LinkedIn to check where I am, so where I'm currently employed. But my greatest mission and the reason why I'm here today is that I want to enable an environment in which young people access opportunities. That is the reason why I am a Career Indaba board member. That is why I'm hosting today's show. I've stepped out of my comfort zone to host the show. As nervous as I am, but it is important for us to have these conversations around the right skills for young people, which connect them to the right opportunities so that they can access earning opportunities. I look forward to being your host and skills into sustainable income. I've got a jam-packed show. We've got a great lineup. I've got Monet Chavoy, who is going to be helping us unpack technical skills which enable young people to access high earning opportunities. And then in the second segment of the show, that's going to be in the second hour, Kilebogile Tlokwe, who is a soft skills coach. She's going to be joining me because we all know technical skills is not sufficient, right? It is important that we have the technical skills, but also the soft skills which enable us to access as well as thrive in our careers. In the last segment of the show, I've got talent acquisition lead, and that is Honolo Ditego Mankai, who's going to be taking us through what employers want in a candidate. So what happens prior to you getting that offer letter? That's the show. I'm going to invite my first guest, Monet. Hi, Monet, can you hear me?
Mmakgosi. Good morning to you and to your viewers and your listeners. And thank you so much for inviting me today to join you. As nervous as you are, I think you are doing fabulous. And I must say, I'm also a bit nervous. I've done quite a few of these, but you know, the nerves, they never really stop. So thank you so much for inviting me to the Career Indaba and maybe to the whole leadership, all the board members. It's actually quite nice to see people get out of the boardroom and actually come to the playing ground and kind of start sharing information and really engaging with young people and sharing valuable information. I must say I've been listening and I've been following, trying to see how different speakers come in and how they kind of play part in making sure that they impact the knowledge that we need. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Monet. Let me tell you something. I've got a new level of appreciation for broadcasters, hey? The level of preparing just for the show, it has just made me look at broadcasting very different. But thank you so much to the team, the Career Indaba team, for offering the opportunity to step out of our comfort zone. This is really stepping out of our zone. Monet, just to introduce you to our list, Monet is a general manager, business development and sustainability at ProTech, right? I think because the platform is about career talk, or this specific slot is about career talk, through your career journey. So prior to you joining ProTech, and I know into it, but take us through your career. We've got time. We've got airtime for you.
We've got time. We've got time. Okay, cool stuff. It's good to know. Well, Mmakgosi, you know, when I look at the theme that you guys are going with this year, and looking at what you're trying to do in terms of sharing the information and making sure that we tell the stories of what careers look like, I think it's quite fantastic for someone like me, who I think I have a very interesting story because a career path I followed, it's not that many people would have thought. And like you said, I am a general manager at ProTech. That is the program for technological careers. It's an NPO focusing on developing young people in STEM. Actually, I think we all know that if we start talking technical careers, STEM comes to mind. And I think we've got a crisis in the country. And one of the reasons why I ended up where I am. But I'll take you back to who I am, and I'll give you background like you. I am a last born of three, and I don't have last born tendencies as well. So, born and bred in a very small village, and I think it's becoming quite big now, called Dopeni in Jerere, Venda, and born to two parents who are both teachers. I'm still very fortunate that I still have both of them. And I mean, being raised by a single mother actually, while having both of them, kind of plays a huge role in who I become later on in life. And the type of choices that one kind of makes, in terms of building oneself. So, started school back in the 90s in a primary school in our local village. And I think following through the footsteps of my siblings, I mean, my sister and I, we've got an 8 year gap in between. And then me and my brother are actually almost exactly a year apart. So we grew up almost like twins. And he grew up being quite a genius, very good with numbers, very good with your STEM subjects. Went to the more private schools, astute schools, while I love to play. Hey? I love playing, and I think back then I was really a last born. So kind of took life the way a last born would typically take it. And I think also introducing my profession, I am a psychometrist by profession. So temperament at the point becomes very important when
Sure.
one grows up, right? And I think it has shaped who I am quite a lot, because at the time of growing up, my siblings got tired of me with my last born tendencies, and I kind of needed to start growing, And I think life pressures kind of starts getting to parents. A single mother with three children, who all three of them really pursued school. You can imagine firstborn going to university, second-born,
Mm,
third-born. I mean, me and my brother almost went to varsity at the same time, to a point where my mom couldn't
mm,
afford to have both of us in school at the same time. And I took a bit of a gap year after passing matric. But yeah, before I go to that, I mean, thankful to my parents actually, but particularly to my mother. I think mothers are very special people, for paving the way and being very resilient. And I think I learned quite a lot of things from her as a human being and her as a mother. Back then, when I looked at some of the things, I would be very sad and think I am not loved. But I think it's the most purest of love
mm,
that you receive from a parent, in making sure that you stay in school and you stay out of trouble. And I think we are living in an era where parents have been stripped of so much authority over children, to make sure that children make, or rather pursue, sustainable paths. And I think back then, I mean, we grew up being beat. We grew up getting a hiding. You become naughty, you get a hiding. And I think from a psychological perspective, it creates that grounding that you need as a young person later on in life. And I mean, you can tell the difference between your baby boomers, millennials, and now I'm a 2000, right? You can tell the different parenting style that had been applied. And I'm bringing this up because it's so important when we start talking about the high unemployment in South Africa and what we see in the industry. Unfortunately, I've been around for some time, and high school wise, I went to a decent public secondary school, about 40 kilometers away from home, Patrick Ramano Secondary School. And I think that's where also my career really, really, really began, because some of the skills that I still have today, I think I started learning them there. And I'll tell you, Mmakgosi, when
mm,
I went to the high school, it's when gangsterism had started in high schools in South Africa. And I was coming from a very far village to where I was going to study. And the main reason for that is my brother went to a private school, one of the top performing schools back then. And I mean, it was a bit pricey at the time. And again, my mother couldn't afford having both of us there. So I always grew up kind of in the shadow of my
mm,
brother. And having gone to that school, number one, it was a very decent secondary school. The teachers were decent. The principal was very strict. So it would give one that grounding as well in terms of you need to pursue maths and science. But the first week of high school, grade 8, was one of the toughest periods in my life, because I got there and I got bullied, you know. Coming from a very far village, like I said, you don't know a lot of people. You get into a school, you find local boys, and they start bullying you. And I'll fast forward to 3 weeks later in the class that I was in. We were all very small and tiny. I'm no longer that tiny anymore, but we were very small, right? And I think they had grouped us based on our academic performance from the primary schools that we came from. And I was fortunate to be in grade 8A at the time. And it was deemed as, oh, these are the smart kids, So the kids in grade 8F would bully us, and the kids in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 would do the same. And I learned to stand up for myself and to stand up for others during that week because I just felt it was too much. All of us, we were being bullied. They were taking lunch boxes from us, money, and so forth. And I stood up. And that is the first skill that I would want to introduce. And that's why I started there, leadership, right? And I think it's one of the key things that young people don't realize, that you need to harness the skill of being a leader, right? And not all of us will be born leaders. Some of us will need such events to happen in life for you to acquire such skill sets. And then, yeah, getting through high school, pretty easy. One of my mom's friends actually moved over to the school, and it became good, became a prominent person in the school. Did my matric in 2007, and I think this is the last part of my early childhood. My matric in 2007 was actually met with quite challenging situations because my brother had just went to university the previous year, and I was in grade 12. Now, of course, in the family, it creates dynamics. We start having to ration resources, and also the attention then becomes quite heavy. He's going away from home for the first time, and the one person that I shared a room with my entire life has left, right? So there was that big void where I would have somebody that I would speak to. If I'm going through something, I would talk to him, and would fight, and those fighting as siblings are very important because they also keep you grounded and growing, and you kind of learn yourself. But I think two significant events that happened was during trial exams. My mother lost her younger sister. She got very sick at the time. And it's when one started learning about things like your HIV and AIDS and so forth, and you start becoming very aware of what these things are, and you start questioning life and all those things. But also it created an imbalance, at home. And I found myself having to start stepping up a bit more and taking that leadership role again because I'm home alone with my mom. And it becomes very critical when you start looking back and say, where did I pick up certain skills, right? Where did I start building grit? Because for me today, the most important skill of them all, grit, particularly in an environment where we are as a country. Grit becomes very critical because you learn the skills to persevere, to hang on, to keep pushing even though things are not going well. So the second significant event during final exams, I had to move from home and go and stay with my grandfather. And it was not a big move because it was right next door, because he didn't have anyone staying with him. There was a funeral in the family during the time, but the funeral was in Lesotho. So other members of the family, my grandmother had to go to Lesotho, and he was alone. And he was at a very frail stage, one can say. So having to look after him, having to kind of do a few things in the house and assist him and help him. And I remember the night I had to write mathematics. We had a funeral again in the house, and it just took me off, and I failed mathematics. So I wrote grade 12,
Sure.
did mathematics, higher grade, and I failed math. Now, this is why it's
Yeah.
significant for me because Mmakgosi?
Monet, can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
mindful of the time, and I want us to get into what informed your decision to study
Going there.
psychometry, right? I want us to tap into,
Going there. So this is where it becomes very significant, Mmakgosi, is 2008, I didn't go to school. I failed, tried to rewrite, and then I eventually went to UP. I had applied for veterinary sciences and got accepted into veterinary sciences at Tux. Excited. I'm also going to Pretoria for the first time in my life. I get there during the registration time. On my way to register, I got mugged and they took my registration money. So I couldn't go to school again that year.
sure.
Right. And going home was just not an option for me. I had to find ways. I then went to UNISA. I registered for epidemiology. And I did it last minute just to make sure that I'm at school. So I stayed and I did a year at UNISA and I failed drastically at UNISA. But fortunately, during that year, just when I failed, a guy I was sharing a flat with said to me, listen, let's go to Medunsa. They've got late application. This was early 2010. And I went to Medunsa, Garankuwa. So, hey, I've been around Garankuwa for some time. So I went to Medusa. I think it was the last day of registration. And after this, I'll fast forward to psychometry. And during the registration time, I mean, back then, there would be late applications early in the year when universities were trying to fill in open slots. And I was fortunate to have gone on the very last day of registration at Medunsa at the time. It was University of Limpopo Medunsa campus. That's why I'm saying Medunsa. So I remember the registrar coming to me while I was sitting down and asking me, because I didn't go to ask. I was very scared. Around 5 p.m., they were about to close, and she asked me, why are you sitting here? I've been seeing you the whole day. I said, well, I was here to look for space. She says, you are only telling us now at 5 p.m. We are going home, and it's the last day. So I was devastated again, but she came back with 3 forms. She was holding 3 application forms. The first one was a Bachelor of Science in Life Science and Molecular, in Life Sciences and Molecular Life Sciences. The second one was written BDS, which is Bachelor of Dental Surgery. The third one was MBCHB, which is basically medicine. And she said, choose which one you want. There is space for you in all of them. You qualify for all of them. And Mmakgosi, I made a decision. And that decision was not informed, but it was, let me just fill in the first form so that I can just get space. So I didn't fill in the BDS one. I didn't fill in the MBCHB one. I filled in the BSc one. And when she came, she said, dude, I gave you medicine, I gave you dentistry, and you chose BSc. So, yeah. You see, so at the time, it's also that career awareness. So I'll introduce psychometry from here, because for me, as a young person coming from rural areas, you do not know what NBCHB is. You don't know what BDS is, right? You just see it and you take the closest thing that is closer to what you know. And the reason why I chose BSc was because at Tux, it was a BSc Veterinary Sciences. So it's closer to what I know. So I chose that. But I did my degree in BSc. I was supposed to do it in 4 years. I did it in 8. So I failed in between, right? I got excluded at some point, and again, great. And my exclusion was partly negligence on my side, but also I was trying to pursue something I love. I was a footballer at some point in my life. I had gotten a professional contract. I thought football is the future. I decided to go to Northwest to play at Platinum Stars at the time. And I got injured and I came back to the university. I realized I was behind. I failed that year. So I got excluded. So how I stumbled into psychometry is during my exclusion. And I think this is now where, Mmakgosi, we need to talk more about the concept of career readiness, which is, according to me, it's the biggest contributor to also this leaking ecosystem or this leaking pipeline when it comes to the unemployment numbers that we see in the country, where we do not have enough services being rendered to kids who are coming up in rural areas. And I mean, if you think about it, in the schooling system now, there's over 10 million, 12 million learners, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm sure that only about 5 to 10% of them will receive some form of career guidance. Some form. Not a structured process, not a structured program, but just...
When they hold the thought, we're just going to take a break. We'll be back because you're a very interesting topic.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market.
Welcome back. I'm still here with Mmakgosi. I'm hosting Career Talk. With me, I've got Monet, and Monet's just he's been sharing his career journey till university. We are going to tap into what he currently does at Protect, the offering, and then tap into other questions. I've got so many questions for you. Out of time, Monet. But I know you are also quite mindful of time. So, Monet, you were telling us about the importance of career guidance. I mean, I completely agree with you. I do think that our schooling system, as it's set up, it does not have that offering. And, you know, mini mo, they now have to pick careers at matric level, and that is for their post-schooling or for the university years. Can you continue point?
Thanks, Mmakgosi. You'll see that I get very animated and passionate about this. But look, when I got excluded, one of the most important things that happened in my life is I actually got in touch with a psychometrist who then said to me, I mean, asking all those relevant questions, why are you doing this degree? Where do you want to see yourself? What do you want to do? And for the first time, I started asking myself, or doing that self-introspection and doing that self-assessment, right? And fortunately, she offered for me to do a full battery of psychometric assessment to kind of help me figure out what sort of career path I need to choose. And at the point, I was excluded at second year. So it kind of helped me in really figuring myself out, my strength, my weaknesses. And the recommendations that came out of the assessment pointed towards psychology. I think it was clinical psychology, educational psychology, and then psychometry was just a subset. And one of the things that happened was she had asked me, can you afford to pay for psychometrics? And Mmakgosi, I think this is one of the most pain points in the country, and we don't talk about it enough, that psychometric assessments are so expensive, right? That a family living off grant would never afford those things. Never, right? And it has been made such a premium service that only those who can afford or only those who would be in programs where somebody has funded would have access to them. And I mean, there's been significant improvements over the few years your Keta of this world have come to play. They are trying to roll out those assessments, but I don't think we have enough practitioners who are willing to go into the rural of the rural and actually assist young people. So I then ended up doing my honors in psychology at SMU. I passed and I did my honors at SMU. And I became the first from Sefako Makgatho to go to UJ to do the practical psychometry program or an honors degree at UJ. And fortunately, I was placed at PsyCAD, or the Center for Psychological Assessment at UJ. And that's where I practiced, right? And I registered as a qualified psychometrist in 2017. But before completing my psychometry or practicum, it's a 6 months program. And I had my own challenges then, and I won't focus on them, but I'll focus on the positives. So 3 months into the program, companies come in scouting and pitching their tools to interns, with the hope that if you end up into a corporate, you'd become an ambassador or you'd help us sell our product. But I was fortunate enough that I was identified by a psychometrist, and he introduced me to his boss. And fortunately, the only company that I knew at the time, or even now, who is a South African-based company that develops psychometric assessments, right? Not bringing them from UK and adapting them from South Africa, but developing them from scratch. And that really has shaped who I am, and those skills that are now skills that I can actually upsell and cross-sell. Whether I'm looking for a new role, those are skills that I always fall back on, or I'm looking to do some consulting on the side. It's skills that I've learned during that time. So I went on to work at OMT Everlex. Big shout out to Jason Mason, Kulin, who found me. At the time when gamification in psychometric assessments was becoming a thing, he found me and I was presenting something similar. And fast forward, I was at OMT for 6 years. Started off as an administrator. I looked after the office, administering assessments, and quickly pivoted into development of psychometric tools. And Mmakgosi, I should say this. This is a very good opportunity for me to talk about this. I think in South Africa, when you talk psychometrics, not a lot of people understand what that subsector in psychology is, and it's significant in the market, and not just in the corporate side, but the problem that I highlighted earlier at early childhood, in terms of are we fixing, or are we addressing symptoms, or are we really looking to find solutions to address the long-term impact of not getting the right support early on in life, right? And I'm very proud that I've actually produced plus minus 40 psychometrists since I've qualified. I would mentor them. I would be there as somebody that they can go to for mentorship and coaching, and making sure that we produce more and more of them. And I'm actually quite proud because I think 90% of them are females in the industry. And I think almost all of them are working in the industry currently. So I've done quite my part in terms of creating a path. And what's very important, Mmakgosi, is when I went to UJ, I did an honors at Medunsa, which was medical psychology, and psychometry, it's under industrial. So there was a huge mismatch, but I made it through. But I'll tell you how I got into UJ. It was what I spoke about earlier, the grit, the perseverance, and something else that I picked up. And today in the job that I do, I still use the skill, being very innovative and creative, right? I started learning things like your Photoshop, learning your Microsoft tools, learning design tools quite early on. And I was doing them just playing around. I would just create drawings using Photoshop. I would just create posters. I was quite involved during my school days at Medunsa, creating posters for the soccer league that we had. And today, I still use that particular skill. And it's one of the skills that, even outside of the job that I do, I get people saying to me, look, I'm looking for an infographic that speaks to impact. Can you do that? And I think because of the mind that I've or the mindset and skills that I've built, I'm able to sit and connect the dots and produce a document, right? And it's things that I can easily go out there and sell if I want.
Super. Tell me more about what you currently do at Protect Training.
So Mmakgosi, before coming to Protect, I think let me bring that quickly, right? I left OMT Everlex, the psychometric industry, because I got frustrated. I was responsible for graduate recruitment, and we were running some of the largest graduate programs in the country: Pick and Pay, SPA, AB in Bev, you name them, CCBA, you name them, right? And my frustration was seeing a black child not making it, right? And it became that point of realization that we have a very significant gap when it comes to skills and competence, and those two things are very different. And I think the industry in South Africa has moved so quickly that I don't think young people even know what recruiters or employers are looking for before you go into an interview, because the reality is almost 60% to 70% of jobs currently, they require psychometric assessments. And if you've never seen a psychometric tool in your life and you go for the first time, chances are you won't even make it through the assessment. So I got very frustrated when I was in the recruitment side and asked myself questions around why is it the case? And I mean, I should say this, hopefully I don't get in trouble. When we were recruiting for AB and Bev, it's when I just lost it. And I decided I need to move into education, because South Africa was supposed to hire quite a significant number of young people, and we couldn't find them, right? And finding them meant that they were not the right match in terms of cognitive ability, personality, emotional intelligence. We were not just getting the right candidates. And it really got to me. And I made a conscious decision that I need to pivot and go to the other side, education. How do I contribute making sure that we develop and we train future-ready young people, right? And that's just what I wanted to lay the foundation so that you can understand why I'm at Protect. So I moved over to UCT Online High School, and I was a career services manager there for about 2 years before jumping up into corporate partnerships manager. But at UCT, what I needed to do there quickly, build systems or put systems in place, digital systems. I mean, at the time, UCT had over 5,000 learners. I tried doing one-on-ones. I couldn't do that. So we needed to automate. So we did that. We put systems in place. And I think that's where you and I met, and trying to solve the issue of career guidance, career development. And when I moved out of the role, I went into corporate partnerships. And again, for me, it was an orchestrated move to say, how do I contribute in making sure that we create a workforce that is well prepared and well trained to understand what industry wants? So I did that for another, call it a year and a half at UCT. And last year, October, I decided I'm going to pursue my true calling, which is youth empowerment. And I founded something called Jobs for Billions. And I brought together industry leaders in a summit over 3 days at Sefako. And of course, it had to go back where I started because I saw a lot of problems. It's when doctors were striking for employment, dentists are not placed. And the whole idea was, how do we ensure that people can actually see the skills that they've learned and transform them into entrepreneurial skills or skills that they can use to become sustainable? And that's when I think I kind of really found myself in terms of the next chapter in my life. And at the time, of course, you are kind of relying on funding, but I also wanted to get back into the grassroots, which is high school. And that's why I'm at Protect. Joined Protect about 6 months ago as a general manager, business development. So to give you high level in terms of what Protect is the oldest NPO, I think, in the country. Founded in 1982 by SACE, or the South African Institute of Civil Engineers. Shout out to them as well. And at the time, they founded it in Soweto trying to produce or to increase the number of black engineers just before the end of the apartheid era. And because the program was so successful in Soweto in supporting the young black learners in Soweto, they expanded to a few areas, and it really caught fire. It became quite a massive program. I mean, last week I attended the Wind Indaba in Cape Town, and I met one of our alumni who was at ProTech in 1999. And you kind of see the kind of impact that ProTech has had by just supporting learners at high school with maths and science, right? And this is very critical if you think about the STEM industry. We don't have enough quality maths and science teachers in the country. And also the mere fact that today, in today's era, I mean, the Trevor Noah Foundation published a paper saying that by 2030, we are going to lose over 40% of our teachers, right? So the quality of education, it's deteriorating in the country. And you're talking about a country where when you get to grade 12, almost 67% of learners are doing mathematics literacy. And only 33% are doing pure maths, right? So that kind of exacerbates the challenge of throughput into industry. And at ProTech, we do several programs. Number one, focusing on raising awareness around why learners should choose maths and science. Secondly, being in the classroom, supporting the teacher with pedagogy, right? Ensuring that they are delivering quality for learners. And then the third component then becomes your Saturday schools, making sure that learners are getting that extra support. I was so proud last night, one of our tutors or our subject specialists shared in a picture with a few learners. They were assisting them, preparing with them for exam, right? Getting into these communities where quality teachers are not there, or the quality of education is already poor, and trying to make sure that we give young people a chance at making sure that they can pursue the careers they want within the STEM industry. And of course, to get STEM right, you also need to get language right. So we also do English to make sure that the medium of communication also becomes quite solid. So last year, we actually expanded, responding to the PELS study. When it comes to literacy at primary level, we now offer programs from grade 4, maths, literacy, English, and also your coding and robotics and so forth. Because to build a pipeline, we can't start it at grade 10, because we are known for FET, right? We do quite well at an FET level, where we take them from grade 10 and then we walk with them all the way to their first 3 years of working. So ProTech, in a nutshell, we've got about 40,000 alumnus who have gone through our program. And I mean, if you want to see the kind of impact we have, the chairman of the board at ProTech is an alumni. Ex-Hollard, ex-APSA, quite successful, now running his own business. And we also have quite a few of our alumni in our board working with ProTech, working for ProTech, and also in the industry. So ProTech has been around for some time, not very well known in the public space. I think hence why they decided they wanted somebody like myself to come in and kind of help grow the brand. And we do quite significant work, Mmakgosi, in communities. I think we are one of the NPOs when you want to go into deep rural Eastern Cape where the school does not offer maths and science. We are ready, we go down there, and we know that change is not instant in situations like that. We go into these communities with open mindset to try and make sure that we deliver a service that our country so needs. And that's who we are.
Okay. I'm going to take a short ad break. I want us to get into your of your students, or rather learners, access your tertiary education, be it university and TVET, as well as how many of them are employed. So does the training accessing earning opportunities. We'll be back shortly.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce.
Welcome back. I'm still out with Monet, who's a general manager at ProTech Training, taking us through the program offering. Now we tap into the real things, right? So the real impact, Monet, because it's all good and well to take young people through a training program. But if there's no return on investment, and I mean, in our space, you would know that's the return on investment after 5 years and 10 years, etc. If there's no real impact, there's no story to write home about, right? So I want to details. If you've got numbers, that will be great. Just share with us how many of your learners actually access tertiary education to STEM-related careers, and how many of them later on access earning opportunities as engineers or artisans for that matter.
Thanks. Mmakgosi, I think a very critical question. I mean, when you look at the industry that we are in, ProTech, we have another program that I didn't speak about. It's called World of Work and post-school program, where our programs are structured to actually support a learner from grade 4 until the first 3 years of work, right? Because along the way, this is where the pipe then starts leaking, and you start seeing learners dropping out or learners not ending up in employment, and in a country where unemployment is so rife, right? So maybe to start off with our throughput or what we deliver on. So when it comes to maths and science and our contribution to the national pass rate, for the past 3 years, our pass rate has been well above 98% consistently.
Sure.
And I think it's only last year where we had 2 learners who were in our program who failed for the first time, right? And of course, there were other psychosocial issues that I wish we had time to talk about.
For clarity, for the first time, meaning since 1982.
For as long as we've got our annual reports, we got a failure of young
That
people.
needs to be studied, hey?
That needs to be looked at. And I think this is
okay.
also
Continue, Monet. Sorry for
and this is also where I say institutions like ProTech, and why I joined, that so much good work happens and it doesn't get out there. But again, they say beautiful things also happen in obscurity, so you kind of getting into this incubator and you get things done. So ProTech has been doing significantly very well in terms of producing learners. And of course, we got affected and we scaled down with COVID when it comes to numbers and so forth. Like I said earlier, we have over 40,000 alumnus that we have tracked that have gone through our programs, and majority of them in industry working. Almost every graduation season from our branches, we get testimonials from learners who are now graduating for the second time from university. And I should say that most of our learners, most of our beneficiaries have been pursuing the university route and not so much the TVET route, right? And we are starting to pivot now because university is becoming more and more a very competitive space where, I mean, how many learners are writing matric versus the number of learners that get accepted into universities. Universities can only take so much. So what we are doing, Mmakgosi, is we are going back now and we are looking at doing a 10-year impact report, looking back 10 years of ProTech. And I think it has come now as a requirement from our board because they are asking exactly that question that you are asking in terms of what are the numbers, where are the numbers, why are they not out there, right? And of course, because we are evolving as an NPO and getting into new heights, we are starting to look into putting information out there so that you don't have to go and research. You can go to our website and click and you'll find the information, right? So we've done very significantly well in terms of tracking. When it comes to accurate numbers, if I talk those who end up in university that we have now at hand that I can tell you, we've looked at 2023, 2024, where about 85% of our learners are ending up in university. And what we want to do is to do a comprehensive study or track and trace for the next coming 3-4 years to make sure that we find where they are post their qualifications. Are they getting employment? Are they getting into your internships? What are they pursuing? And I mean, since I've joined Mmakgosi, I've met almost 10 alumnus who were not in contact with ProTech. And I should say, big hitters in the industry. We had a guy who had been a general manager in a few mines in the Mpumalanga region who came through into the office and said, look, guys, I've been with you. I was at ProTech in the 1980s. I would like to give back to ProTech. So we're getting more and more of them. Of course, we're doing quite a lot on our socials just for people to see what we're doing. And the more we do that, the more we get people coming back to us and saying, listen, I've been with ProTech. And the reality of the NPO space, Mmakgosi, is information is there, but it's scattered, right? And as time is evolving and tech is evolving, we are introducing systems that would actually give a clear picture of what has happened in ProTech over the past 5 years, what is the true impact on the ground. And I think it is at the right time that ProTech is also hiring young and bringing young people who have the skill sets to can do what we need to do to make sure that we disseminate the information in the right channels. As an example, we have one of our biggest projects now where we are supporting, just this year alone, we've supported about 35,000 learners across schools. And that's just one project that we are running with the Ada for Education program. And I think one of the things that we are building and ring fencing around that program is creating proper reporting structures and M&E processes that long term, you wouldn't have to ask me, what is the real impact? You would just go and be able to see it on our website. How many learners have gone through the program? How many of them dropped out at high school? How many of them didn't take mathematics at grade 9, right? Because those are the measures that we need to be looking at, that we need to be communicating and taking it a step further. How many of them are ending up in bursaries? And I'm proud to tell to share with you and your listeners that we are running one of our programs with GE Vernova. It's a global program as well. I mean, we had graduations just 3 weeks ago, if not 4 weeks ago, and full scholarships for these kids. I think it's about 100 learners who graduated from our Next Engineers program. So we have programs on the ground where we can't talk employment if the same funders that we work with are not creating bursaries, right? For one to get into employment, particularly in where we function, quintal 1, 2, 3, you also need to have bursaries for these kids to go to school, right? And you know, Mmakgosi, I should say that the industry is opening up, it's growing, and industry is starting to realize. I mean, GE, ADA, they are starting to ask the question, okay, fine, we see everyone wants to become engineers, but what about artisans, right? So we are starting to evolve towards encouraging our learners through our World of Work program to consider TVET College not as a second option, but as a viable and credible option to employment?
I'm really hoping that you can spearhead the TVET discussion, because it is going to take a lot of work, Monet, and we need to acknowledge that everybody wants to go to university. Every parent wants to go to a prestigious university. So that facilitate that mind shift, TVET is going to require work from people like yourself and I, to change the narrative, because there was a time when were the places that people wanted to be. I mean, I remember a time when people wanted to go to university, not university, Pretoria Tech. Remember Pretoria Tech? It was
Yes.
everybody wanted to go to Pretoria Tech. I mean, in all fairness, that's my brother's era, but I do think there's a lot of work that needs. We've come to the end of our slot, Monet. You and I can go on and on and on about vocational skills, and but I really love the support that you're giving to the learners at high school level, because that is where now you build your pipeline of your future, as well as engineers. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll touch base with you a bit later. But yeah, thank you much for just gracing us with your background as well, particularly on your program offering.
Thanks, Mmakgosi, for hosting
Final
me and
words?
inviting me to the career Indaba. Looking forward to the impact coming from this and the collaborations that can happen. So really looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Let's talk skill. Let's
All
talk
right,
survival.
super. Let's just
Let's
add
talk
break.
future.
We'll be back.
Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market.
Welcome back from the ad break. You're still with me, Mmakgosi Chaane-Pule, Career Indaba board member. I am your host just for the day on Career Talk. Up next, I am going to be chatting to Kilebogile Tlokwe. Kilebogile Tlokwe is a business strategist, educator, digital literacy, and soft skills advocate. Oh my. Yeah, that title, hey, that title needs to be unpacked. Hi, Kile.
Hi, Mmakgosi. How are you?
How I'm good. How are you? I'm nervous. I've been telling the listeners that sure, this is so outside of my comfort zone. I'm not a broadcaster. but the Career Indaba team challenged me to say that you are going to be hosting Career Talk. And of
I'm so
course,
glad
I
they
took
did.
up the challenge.
Sure. Glad they did,
You're
because
too
when we were
kind.
prepping for today, you were doing incredible. So I think you're the perfect person for the job.
Super. Thank you so much. Kind words as well. Lebohile, please introduce ourselves to the listeners in this slot. I'm very excited about this slot. Just to give our listeners the background story, you were actually meant to share the slot with a colleague. But on Saturday, when we had a briefing session, it was meant to be 15 minutes top. This is what this is about. This is what I'm expecting. We ended up conversing for close to an hour. And I said to you, there is no way this conversation can be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I'm so glad that you're here. But let's start first with you introducing yourself. Who are you? Where you're from? What you studied? How you became a soft skills coach?
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. That prep call that we had was just incredible. And just to get into it, I am Kelebogile Letlhoka. I'm from Hammanskraal, so ke ngwana ko Themba, ngwana Pitori. And I went to an Afrikaans school. So I was raised with languages through my grandparents, who were avid readers and just very passionate educators. And I went into an English school because I didn't know how to speak English. And I went to the University of Pretoria, where I majored in communications, modern languages, as well as I had to major in an international language, which is German. And I had to take an elective, which is French. So I speak a bit of French and German. And from there, my journey really took a different turn, obviously, because it was mostly majoring in languages, but the communications and media aspect of it is what drew me in. And through my relationship with Ferdi, meeting him in university, volunteering for some of the personal brand leadership, and I'm a brand work, is where I kind of started shaping this interest that I have developed over the years. It obviously, kind of moved into bits of digital marketing strategy, but at the core of it, that personal branding and organizational branding and how it plays out in an organizational brand, whether be it your community, family, in the world, is what started to grow even bigger. And honestly, to cut a long story short, I'd say that through the media work that I do, I'd be doing the production work, the digital marketing. I always had this very aerial view perspective of everything that we do. And it was always informed by the I'm a brand, personal branding work that I would say has been some of the foundational elements of how I view life and specifically careers. And so when I officially started my consulting of brand strategy and coaching some entrepreneurs and working with entrepreneurs through the Island Gray Foundation, I started to see that this gap is actually bigger. It's not just people struggling to get jobs. It's not just entrepreneurs doing what they can through their businesses to equip and contribute to eradicating this unemployment rate that is very high in our country. And I could just see this gap of the skills that are needed for these entrepreneurs to grow their businesses and thrive, but also for the individuals who are looking for jobs, right? Because not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur or wants to be one, but they need a job. And so, so the soft skills and digital literacy advocacy came from that, coming from a digital marketing strategist and realizing that, okay, there's actually a bigger need to equip people to be able to thrive, not just in businesses, but in their jobs. And the conversation started, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to take this advocacy, and now I'm even going to be educating people officially, full time next year.
And about soft skills, right? We're not just talking about young people who are yet to opportunities. We're also talking about experienced professionals and who are looking to thrive in their job. I think for me, it's very much important to say that for graduates, just for graduates or for people who are in this, but it is a conversation because on Saturday I was sharing with you that I made, but because I just didn't know. And your degree or your formal training, right? These are the things that you learn as you reflect back. You know, if you've got a career coach, that's great because then they can also let you know that the rails here. But let's first unpacking soft skills. Who is or who has a very limited understanding of soft skills, right? And before you come in, Gile, it is important for us to acknowledge that it's not just the technical that are going to get you through the door. I'm gonna allow you to kick off with what are soft skills.
Yes. In fact, the first video that blew up on TikTok, or rather started the conversation on TikTok, or rather across all my social media platforms, was that where I was saying that I've been sitting in some of my clients' recruitment processes. So coming in and then they say they need someone, and I said, okay, I can help you because I've experienced with that. And in realizing that in fact, Mmakgosi, it is the technical skills that get your CV reviewed and said, okay, we want to see this person. Let's actually have a conversation. The soft skills are only introduced when you are officially starting the job. What is this? The job process, right? Only when you've been hired is when we get to see the soft skills, because it's very easy for you in an interview to talk about how you have the right attitude and you are adaptable, you can work under pressure, and all these things that we do to sell ourselves. So the first and foremost is that there are your technical skills that get you into the room, they get you through the door, your qualifications. So these are the transferable skills, right? It's something that you go to university to study, or even in the job environment. Now that you've started with your new job, they can train you to say, okay, this is the manual, this is the culture, in order for you to do this. So it's all the handover work, the work that you can touch, right? And then now with your soft skills, it's the work that you can't touch, you can't even see, you can't even see it, you can only experience it, and see it, I guess, play out. But so we've got the hard skills and the soft skills, and really the soft skills, like we said on Saturday when we were prepping, is that it really does boil down to the attitude, because you don't necessarily get to be born with them, and it's hard to learn them if you're not aware that you need to learn them. You know what I mean? And I used to tell some of the interns that I used to lead in my previous job that I need you guys to learn without being taught. You don't have to, everything that you are learning doesn't have to be given to you and say, hey, pay attention, the CEO is speaking, watch how he's engaging with the clients. Not all learning is, because in fact the learning that is given to you quite physically, or that you are pinched to say pay attention, that type of learning can be a technical skill, it's a hard skill, because it's being transferred. But the soft skills it's really in the I with all my mentors. In fact, I always say, some of the people that I look up to don't even know that they're my mentors. Why? Because I'm watching them without them knowing that I'm watching them. My senior, where I used to work, I used to watch her. There were moments where she would give me feedback after a session, after a meeting with a client, a presentation, and that was great. But I also made sure that I watch her without her saying, Kele, watch me. Kele, do this. Kele, did you see that? But just look at how she's engaging with the client. Look at how she's responding to the CEO in the boardroom. Look at how she's getting everybody in the room. We'd be sitting 20 people in the room, and she would be able to get everybody in, and I'd just be fascinated by that.
Let's take a quick ad break. I want
Okay.
us to tap in the examples because I think when we talk about
Okay.
soft skills, and I hear you talking about the mentor, and I want us to really are they specifically how you speak, how you dress, how you move, what will be back shortly.
Okay.
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Welcome back from the Kilebogile Tlokwe. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Kilebogile? You know, I'm so pedantic about
My name,
pronunciations because I know I get so annoyed when people
yeah.
my name.
My name is perfect. My surname is Tlokwe. So
Tlokwe.
you're not
Okay.
Tlokwe. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Ke ngwanyana ko Pretoria, so yeah, Tlokwe is quite a familiar
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So prior to the ad break, I said to you that we need to give examples because you know soft skills is it's a term, right? But it's important for us to unpack what does it mean. Like things like you know people will be telling you read the room. I've got a colleague of mine who likes saying to me, read the room, and I'm like, read what room? But I know what she means, right? But that's a soft
Yeah.
skill. Let's get into examples. Let's
Yeah.
help our listeners.
So like you said, sorry about that. So like you said, reading the room is a soft skill, right? And another one that you could say is a soft skill is so being an ambassador of the company that you work for, not just going into the office and doing what is expected of you. And you know, something that I actually unpacked quite lengthy on some of the videos that I've done, that you know, because people struggle to differentiate between being a someone who sucks up, you know, and someone who bends over backwards just to get the attention of their manager or their boss, and they're being a pick me because you know they just want to impress. Like there is a big difference, because fundamentally we all ought to have boundaries, and I know that it's very difficult, in fact, to know the difference, because in the beginning you really want to be recognized, you want to be promoted, you want to be seen, and you want to stand out. And so you need to be able to know the difference when you know, you yourself can only know that, okay, here I'm actually not exercising a boundary because I know I don't have capacity. But now when we talk about exercising a soft skill of, you know, going the extra mile, I actually even said that it's not bending, you know, and going against a value of yours, but it's really going the extra mile. And we see this, and I think it's so difficult to bring it back home. We see this in whenever you go to a much more you know, upper echelon restaurant, or you go to a shop, you know, that sells luxurious clothing. We even see it on TV, right? They are a differentiator of customer service, of just, I say to your manager, just ask them, I'm done with this part of the presentation. What else can I do to make it better? Or actually wanting to be involved and tell your manager that I really would like to know how else I can support you. Within the company, being an ambassador of the company is not just whenever a client walks in. I even made an example that whenever a potential client or even someone walks into the building at reception and you just happen to be passing, don't just walk past because you can see someone walked in, right? right? And a lot of these things also stem from some of the values that you were raised with, and it obviously depends on how you were raised and what were some of the very important things that you needed to do. Like, for example, I can give an example. We were raised that when an elderly person or someone, a visitor, walks in, yes, they didn't come to you, they obviously came to my grandparents, but ema, you know. So those things are very important. When a visitor arrives at home, even as a child, ask them, can I offer you something to drink? Cup of tea, juice, water. You know, just being hospitable. So it's something like an attitude, a value that you were raised with at home, and implementing that. When you see someone walk into the building and they didn't come to you, and maybe you just someone new who doesn't really call the shots, but you see someone come in, hi, how are you? How can I help you? You know, who are you here for? Or turns out maybe they're here for your manager or your boss. Okay, I'll get them for you. Can we offer you something to drink? I'm coming right up, you know, and you go and you fetch your manager. That is custom. In fact, when someone has come into the office, they will remember you. When they talk to the boss during their meeting, and maybe you are not involved, they will recognize and say, "Who's that?" Or they'll make a comment. That was that was a good experience that I had in the company. Who is that? You know, and so those are some of the ways that you can kind of just start to observe in implementing, you know, what soft skills really is, and practicing it. And you mentioned reading the room. Reading the room is so important. You know, I even gave an example and said one of the skills that you can start to practice is that in a boardroom, when there is a meeting, maybe it's a meeting with executives and your boss or your manager's there. Don't, even if this is your presentation, don't be the first one to lead it. You are with your seniors in the room, being at the table. This if you're alone with the class and your team, that's fine. But if your seniors are in the room, pause, wait. In fact, if they say, okay, let's start the meeting, you can say, I would like for you to give them the floor, you know. And it's yet again, it's a value that we could be taught at home, and sometimes we're not, but it's a value of honor. You know, we were raised with that. But even if you're not raised with it, it's something that these people are your seniors, they are the executives, and there's so many dynamics that are at play. It's not just a power dynamic. It's not just a, no, I'm doing this because they're much more important. No, it's because you are being a brand of the company. And with the brand of the company, the brand has a leader. And how can you demonstrate that the brand has a leader? Or not interjecting or disagreeing with your boss or your manager in front of everyone, and, you know, because you want to prove a point and you don't agree. No, there is a way that we do it. You know, it's not to say don't do it. It's to say, how do you do it? You know, and that can be very difficult because unfortunately you learn it on the job. But I think the sooner that you are aware of these things, that, okay, what can I learn without being taught? I think that you would be on the right track. Yeah.
Sure. How do we then embed the soft skill within, let's say, the schooling environment? So trying to help young people grasp what soft skills are about, so that they don't learn by making too many mistakes, from, let's say, university or tertiary education into the world of work. How do we get that right? Because you're learning by making errors. I mean, I do appreciate that there's a level of experience we have to all undergo to learn the lesson, right? You know, when someone says don't do something, and you're like, but you don't understand the context. But through experience, you realize that, yeah, no, that's a no-go area. How do we embed it within the schooling environment?
I mean, I also I think, yeah, when we were chatting on over the weekend in preps, I also shared about some of the youth development work that I do with you know, corporates that want to go into schools and do enrichment programs, and really to supplement the educational or rather the quality of education that the learners are getting. And unfortunately, it's really sad that we are not able to implement this at a at a mass level and at a policy level. But I think that eventually we could get there as a country. But for the young people, some of the things that I've been doing, I mean, I'm quite privileged enough that in the past 2 years that we've been going into these schools, and my sessions particularly, which tie very nicely with the soft skills element for the adults, is that I talk about intrapersonal skills and interpersonal skills, right? And it's very fascinating to see how they don't know what intrapersonal skills are. But I challenge them to say, it's in the name, right? The intrapersonal skills is the skills that you have within yourself. The skills that you develop within you, what makes you you, what are your values, the habits that you develop, the confidence that come out of those habits. And we do these activities that help them pause, quite literally. I give them an example of journaling, because that's how I've been doing it over the years. But you don't necessarily have to journal, but it's just practicing the mindfulness of what you experience. So my core topic is emotions. And in as much as that we can say, don't bring your emotions into the workplace, unfortunately, we are human beings, we're not robots. And so we talk a lot about that. We talk a lot about understanding your intrapersonal skills. What makes you you? Who are you? And what are the values that you want to build? And and how does that inform the career that you want to pursue? And so in doing that, we then move on to, so that the intrapersonal skills are for the grade 10s. And then because it's a build-up program, we start at grade 10, and then when they are in grade 11, we do grade 11, which is the interpersonal skills. Now that we understand ourselves, how does that allow us to relate with others? Because the interpersonal skills, how do we relate with others in our community? And fortunately and unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it does boil down to the health of the individual, because it's going to be very difficult when they get to university and post that into the workspace to be able to learn soft skills, if they, just a typical example, if they don't have good boundaries. Like, soft skills are out of the room if you don't have boundaries, because you're not even going to be able to practice a soft skill, because all you're doing is just letting work being piled on you because you just struggle to say no. And so I'd say that for the younger people who are in school and in the school curriculum, we do pray that we are able to touch as many learners as possible. So far, I think we've touched about 5,000 learners, if not more. And really, the work that we do, we are able to see the spark come to life, to say, oh my gosh, I do need to have a relationship with myself. I do need to understand, how does my past, my trauma, my emotions, how it impacts the way I show up in school, how it impacts the way I'm going to show up in university, the way I'm going to show up in the workplace. And so you're absolutely right. The sooner we start, the better.
Okay. Just one final question before we take an ad break. For someone who's in the early career or even advanced career, what would you recommend to broaden, for lack of a better phrase, broaden their soft skills? Because, like I said, it's not something that is just exclusive to young people transitioning into the world of work, but definitely even people who are quite experienced.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good question. And I'm going to share my own experience and those of some of the mentors that I've had over the years. The first thing that I would say when you get into a job, especially if it's a first job or you've been in the job market and now you're aware of soft skills and you want to start implementing them, the first thing that I would say is that find people that are, whether in your workspace, from your managers to the senior executives in the organization, or even online. We are fortunate enough to have access to the internet. Find people that you look up to, people who you say, I want, this is what I want to become, or this type of leadership is what I like. I'm gravitating towards this. And how I did that is from an early age, I think even before I started working, I loved and looked up to, I still continue to look up to people like Meputi Mahanyela and Tate Bonang Mohale, you know. And these are people I've never met, by the way. You know, I prayed to meet them one day, but I've never met them. And what I did, I promise you, I know it sounds crazy, and maybe it even sounds like being a bit of a goody two shoes, but I really studied these people. Like watch them. I find any YouTube video that exists about them, and I look at them. I look at how they answer questions. I look at how they speak. I look at how they reference experiences, leadership moments where they failed. I listen to, where did they fail? What did they do wrong? Like I said, even with my physical mentors who I get to have worked with or I get to engage with, I don't just listen to what they tell me. So when you get into your first job, really observe and also be a student of people. Just study people, and without like thinking too much about it. Really look at when a decision maker walks into the room. Look at how people respond to them. Look at how people, sit up and just watch people. The second thing that I would say that's very important is ask for feedback. Ask for feedback. If you identify someone that you say, okay, I like this person's leadership, or I like how they lead me, or I like how I work with them, but they're senior, they're older than you, ask for feedback as often as possible. I remember, I think I was in my second job, I was working for a business coaching company, and it was a small company, but we had a boss, and love this man, Peter Scott, and I just love how he was adamant that we meet every single week. Twice a week we met, on the Monday and the Friday before we knocked off. And Peter would check. He was so pedantic. It was annoying, but I'm so grateful for how pedantic he was with checking in. It's a Monday. What are the numbers saying? We look at the technical stuff. Then once we're done with the technical stuff, you're doing cold calling. You're engaging with entrepreneurs, and you're engaging with executives who are buying a $500,000 franchise. So I need to train you. What did they say? How did you respond? And it was gruesome. It was gruesome. I used to cry almost every week, but that, it is the foundation of what soft skills are, because if you're not getting feedback, how do you know that you're doing the right thing?
Completely agree with you. And I love that you've given us a practical example, particularly for those who are quite experienced, and trying to figure out how do they harness the soft skill, because it's something that you need to work on. Let's just take a quick ad break. We'll be back.
Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market.
Welcome back from the ad break. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
hear
super.
you.
I see that the team has muted me. I'm seeing they've muted mic, but it's good that you can hear me. Okay, now this is going to sound like a repeated question, but to go through the most important soft skills. So if you are a young, let's talk about a graduate first, transitioning into the workplace, as well as an experienced professional, 3 to 5 years, looking to thrive in their career. What are the important soft skills for both of them?
Okay, we'll start with the fresh graduate. The fresh graduate, the most important soft skill is, and I know this one is not necessarily one that you can implement immediately because you're new in the company, right? So you're still learning. There's lots of information that's coming in, quite literally, with practicals. And so the first thing that I want a graduate to know and to start kind of thinking about and preparing themselves mentally is, from the time that you've just started working right now until where you want to get to, whether it's eventually leave and start your own company and employ other people, or it's to become the CEO and the CFO of the company. From this moment up until that point of what success looks like for you, don't ever think that you know everything. Don't ever think that you will get to a point where you don't need to learn anything. It doesn't matter what you do. Because what that does is that it opens you, not just here, but here. It opens you to have a positive attitude. It opens you to not speak to the CEO or the manager or the CFO or whoever is deemed to be important and holds a higher position in the company to be much more important than the cleaner. You know what I mean? So having a deep respect for everyone, because like I said earlier, when a potential client walks in, when they walk in, you don't know that they're a potential client unless it's someone famous, I guess, right? And naturally, our subconscious and natural disposition is to get excited whenever we see someone that is famous. But when someone walks in, or even the person that holds a lower position and you don't think that they're that important, you don't know who they are. And also you don't know who they will become. And so that is what I would say. Outside of all the reading the room and offering your support to your manager and going the extra mile and making sure that you present yourself, because also the way you dress is a soft skill, right? And it's not to say get expensive clothes. young people. No, it is to say, I actually, Fadi always says whenever we're doing the youth work, that when he first met me, I was in university, and I always, first time he saw me, I looked so presentable, and from that day on, he just always saw how presentable I look. And I always say that whenever people would say, "Oh my gosh, you look so nice," even to this day, when people compliment how I dress, it's purely because I have been intentional about the way I present myself, because I know that it speaks volumes. But also, it's not a go shopping and buy expensive clothes. From the time that I was in university up until today, I still do thrift shopping, right? Or I still go to places where I know that they sell nice clothes and they're not expensive. And so you don't have an excuse as a young graduate, especially if you already have a salary financially at some point. I promise you, Mmakgosi, to this day, there are still nice tops that are sold for 20 rands. It just depends where you look.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And so
I'm not a
Marabastat,
Joburger.
yeah,
Can you hear me? I was
Marabastat,
saying
you're
that I'm not a
right.
Joburger. I hear people
Yes.
talk about small street, but
Mm.
Rabastad is similar to that. So I could
Yes.
agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So that's what I would say for the young graduate, right? I think we've covered sufficiently. For the 35, 40-year-old, has about maybe 15, 20 years in experience behind them. You know, you are getting to an expert level in your field. You are being recognized. You are the thought leader. You are the person that people are looking up to. You are the person that people are asking questions and people want to know what you have to say. You are the one who holds the meetings in the boardrooms. The soft skill that I would say is important to have in that moment, I also spoke about in some of my videos, is that you are the leader. You are the person that everybody's looking up to. And so some of the practical examples I would give is that in a meeting, especially when you're leading across the board, not just middle management, there's interns and there's seniors, but there's different peoples, right? Remember, I said soft skills is really a study of people. And I'd say, because we never really arrive with our learning, I'd say that in a discussion or a brainstorming session, look out for the individuals that don't say much in the meeting. Because you know, almost in a meeting, you have those who have opinions and who lead the strategy and this, but there's always a few, one or two, maybe even more, who are quiet the whole time. Don't just focus on the ones who are talking because they are contributing. Why? Because you never know what the person who's quiet actually has to say. And chances are you'll find that they have some valuable insight to share. I think you and I spoke about this at length also this past weekend when we were prepping, that
Yeah.
you don't always have to say something, you know? And as a leader, I think that the one of you don't always have to say something, that one would be for the younger ones, obviously, to just be a sponge and observe and not always having something to say just because you feel like you need to. But for the leader is what I would say, that just they're reading the room because they are leading the conversation. You know, there isn't necessarily a senior that they need to be aware of, but their version of reading the room is really looking who's not saying anything, and without embarrassing them, in a very respectful way, to really say, Mmakgosi, you've been quiet. I'd like to hear what you think. What do you think about the inputs that have been shared? What that does for the people and that individual, because some people are shy. Not everybody wants to, you know, look at me, I have something to, not everybody's like that. But what that does, it does two things. To the people that are watching, who are aspiring to be a leader and be in your position and maybe be a senior in the company, it teaches them that everyone has a value to add. Just because this one is quiet or there are few people who are quiet doesn't mean that they don't have a value to add. You never know what the person's value is until they tell you. And you won't know until they ask you. Just because they're not volunteering doesn't mean that they don't have anything to say. The second thing it does for that person alone, because they also belong in the company, they also work there, and you know, they're probably feeling imposter syndrome or they're feeling anxious. But what it does for them is that it validates them. it makes them realize that, oh, I have room here. I have a seat at the table, and my seat is acknowledged. My seat is wanted. It makes them also to trust their own opinion, to trust their own voice. That if they have something to share, because a leader or an executive in the room pointed me out and asked me for my opinion, and most of the time that opinion is probably valuable, and it'll be validating, it'll be affirming. And even if it's not, even if it's incorrect, it's a teachable moment, but it's in the manner that it was done. It wasn't a, hey, you've been quiet this whole time, don't you have anything to share? But it was in a, hey, Mmakgosi, I really want to know what you think. You've been quiet, can you share what your thoughts are? It's respectful, it's validating, it's affirming, and it's building the confidence that they need to say, okay, next time maybe I can raise my hand, or when they become the leader, they also know, they'll remember that one day there was me who was shy, and my leader pointed me out, and I happened to give some very valuable feedback.
Can I share a different lens though? I know people who can be very quiet. It's not because they are shy. It's not because they can't, raise up their hand at that moment and ask a question. But they will talk about timing. There's a lot to say, but it's not the right room, and it's not the right time, or it's not the right audience, right? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yes. And I think that, it would be a bit of a challenge for the person who's being asked, depending on the level of, position that they're at. But I think that in that moment, it's that skill of reading the room, that would come into play. Where if the person is quiet for a while, and the executive or the leader does say, hey, Mmakgosi, you've been quiet for some time, don't you have anything to say? You don't have anything to say. In fact, you can say, no, I don't, and leave it there. Wait for when the meeting is done. And then you can actually go to the senior and say, earlier you asked me, don't I have anything to say? I wasn't sure. I don't think that it was the right time for me to say that, or my opinion was, going to be well received because of how I saw the flow of the conversation was going. So you're absolutely right. That's another very important soft skill. We did unpack that. It's very important for you in reading the room. It's not just saying the right thing, but it's also knowing when not to say something, especially if you're not sure. If you're not sure, just hold back and say, no, I'm good, thanks. And actually wait for the right time to say this. Or if you don't agree with the flow of or rather the direction of the conversation, you can just say, no, I'm all right, thanks, and wait for the right time.
Because I being caught off guard, prepared, that can throw you off. I mean, it can throw anybody off when you're not aware of what's to come. Let's move right along. So, happened. People are working remotely.
Yes.
How? And I'm bringing this up because I think there's a different skill set to working remotely, right? So in the digital or remote work area, how have soft skills like communication and adaptability? We're not seeing each other in person anymore. This is how we are engaging on virtual platforms. What's the importance of soft skills in these kinds of environments, in virtual rooms?
Sure. The importance of soft skills in the age that we now have been working in due to the pandemic, I'd say, is intentionality. Because you don't get to see, how people respond. You don't get to see how people show up, how they feel, because sometimes how someone feels. You don't just hear it by what they tell you, but you pick it up in their demeanor, in how they presented themselves in the day. And so I'd say it's being extra intentional. And by being extra intentional is, I mean, if it's a fully remote work, it's making sure that whenever we have meetings, let's switch on our cameras. And before we start a meeting, or if we don't have the time in the meeting, making the time in the day or in the week of work to check in with the team. If you're a graduate, being intentional to reach out to your seniors and making sure that you are checking for that feedback that we spoke about. You are checking for that extra support that you can give your manager. If you're a leader, it's being intentional to have to develop a culture. If you're fully remote or even hybrid, but to develop a culture that if we're meeting on the day that we are physically in the office, we are going to meet. We are going to physically meet, and we're going to do physical check-ins, not just on your work, but on you as an individual. Are you growing? You know, what is it that you think that we could change? What could we do differently? That's very important, because culture is not seen. Culture is felt. You feel the culture when you walk into the space. That Bonang Mohale says in his book, Rise as we, what is this, Lift as You Rise. He says that what he used to do when he was still very early in his careers and growing in his leadership positions is that whenever he would be starting in a new environment, a new company, he would walk into the space to feel the culture, because that's where you see the receptionist, whether she's chirpy or not, whether she's sitting up or not. You know, you're able to see if people are actually enjoying what they do, and you're not, people are not just quiet quitting and just showing up because they have to pay the bills, and walking around in the space. And so because of the digital world that we have become, the intentionality of community, you've also seen it in how there's these movements that are coming up where people meet once a week for, I've actually recently joined a Mokgodu Monday circle, which is professionals and people who are building their careers. And we meet for Mokgodu Monday and we chat and we talk about some of the challenges we face, And so because of the digital age, community, we are not the community that our grandparents and our parents grew up in, where you were able to see one another as often as possible. And that a lack of connectedness does significantly contribute to also how we show up mentally. How are we emotionally? Because there's no physical contact with people, that spirit does impact you and can impact how you deliver in your work. And so it's very important to be extra intentional about checking in with your teams if you're leading, but also checking in with your leaders, your managers, as often as possible beyond the work that you're doing.
Great. Final question. Geez, man, you and I can have this conversation for 2 hours, I tell you, because there's just so much to unpack, just to narrow it down, and to obviously make the conversation palatable to your graduates as well as your more experienced we have to, we don't have sufficient time to just cater to the entire audience. Final question. So in your view, what's the mind shift change that people need to make to go from skilled to sustainably successful? I'm asking you this question because A, you're an entrepreneur, and B, you're a soft skills coach. Right person to ask this question.
So what's the mindset shift to go from skilled to sustainable career?
Sustainably successful.
Sustainably successful, yes. So I think we also touched it a bit on it on the weekend. But what I would say is companies are looking for, and now that I've crossed over and I'm an entrepreneur now, but companies are looking for, even if you have no desire to be an entrepreneur, honestly, this is for the growth, for that sustainable success, the growth of your career, is you need to have an entrepreneurial perspective. And what I mean by that is, like we spoke about, being the ambassador of the company. Being an ambassador of the company obviously fundamentally needs to stem from loving what you do, which is unfortunate that a lot of people don't. But even if you find yourself in an environment where you don't love what you do, there are things that you are good at, right? We said skilled, but there's also your personal unique value proposition that makes you you. Because if the company was looking for a robot, they would have gotten a robot. So they didn't hire you purely because of the skill, the technical skill that you have. They hired you for you because people buy from people. People connect with people. So you are there as a skilled person, and there are things that you can bring into the work that you are doing, whether you like the job or not, whether you like the company or not, the bosses, the leaders, or whether it's a toxic environment. I am I'm an avid believer in being born for such a time as this, that even if you find yourself in an environment that you don't like, there is a reason why you're there. There are things that you are learning. Now that I've crossed over, I can safely say that all the companies that I've worked from the time I graduated all the way up until to where I am today, there is no single lesson that I have not implemented in being an entrepreneur. Meaning that that can be the same for when you want to be a leader of a company. Every single touch point of being skilled and implementing those skills in your job, and learning the soft skills and iterating your technical skills and studying further and getting certifications and getting mentored and all of those things, I would say the mindset shift that is very important is in, like, get out of the this is hard, or this is, the toxicity of the company. I genuinely really really understand how toxic some work environments can be, and that will require you to be even more intentional about reflecting on your day, building a very healthy mental relationship, being mindful and being mentally well, whether it's through your support system community or therapy or whatever it is. There are tools that we have access to, that you don't always have to pay for, in order for you to be able to cope with the toxic environment, right? But when I say that being born for such a time as this, I really mean that it doesn't matter the environment that you find yourself in. It does boil down to the mindset that you have, the perspective that you have, that I'm not going to walk around with this belief that I have a master's. Nobody can tell me anything. I've led 5,000 people. I don't have anything else to learn about people. No, 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 no. The moment you get there, you are losing. And so that mindset shift of just make sure that you are a sponge, whether you're a graduate or you're an executive who's leading people, or you're an entrepreneur. You never arrive. You never get to a point where you say, I have more than enough soft skills. So if that mindset can be maintained, I think that, you'll be okay. You'll be able to build that sustainably successful career path.
Yeah, what a beautiful way to close off. What a beautiful way to close off with you, Vachile. So much. Thank you so much for coming through, for gracing us with your presence and with your beautiful brain. I'm consistently
Thank you,
just mesmerized. Every time I have conversations with you, I'm like, gee whiz. But really made this conversation meaningful. Just to help graduates as well as experienced professionals to navigate the topic of soft skills, what it is, what does it mean. You are currently on our LinkedIn. Well, there is LinkedIn communication. How do people get hold of you? I mean, for the listeners who want to further engage, perhaps eyeing you to be, how do people get hold of you? Maybe if you
Yes.
can share your details.
Yes, people can get a hold of me, if not on my social media or across all my social media, if you just type Kelebogile Tlhokwe, or on Instagram and TikTok, I'm Lele. Lele is my nickname, so Lele Tlhokwe, my nickname and my surname. And then for coaching services or just any form of guidance, I do have a business number, which is 071-418-4504. And what I do is that I will take you through a discovery process where I ask you a few questions, you fill out a form, and so that I can see where you are in your journey of your career and what type of support and help you need, and then we can take it from there.
All right. Thank you so much. Our listeners have enjoyed your presence. Thank you so much. Really, I love this conversation, and I love you leading this conversation. And please do publish a book. We need a book. We need a release for beginners as well as for experienced professionals, because I think that there is a lot to unpack on soft skills. Okay, let's
Sure.
take
Thank you so much.
an ad break. Thank you. Let's we'll be back with our next guest.
Hello, Africa. Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Hello, Africa. Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover, a 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market.
Welcome back. So with me, Mmakgosi. I'm your host. I'm your career talk host for the day. We are in the final hour of the show, and with me, I've got Letlhogonolo Sophie, Ditejo Mangai. Which name do you prefer? Well, we'll get into which name you prefer. But Letlolo, she's a talent acquisition lead for a multinational company, and she's taking us through what players look for in a candidate. She's got the lowdown on why is it that you keep on applying for roles and you keep on getting rejected, for those who have experienced rejection. And then just to also share, what sets others apart from you? What boils down to getting the offer letter? Okay. Hi, Letola, how are you? You have to let me know which name you prefer, because I see that you prefer both.
Look, in all honesty, I prefer Lithogo Nono, but professionally I use Sophie because it's so much easier to pronounce, especially when you work for a multinational where you've got German people, French people, Spanish people. They find it very difficult and too long. So I just stick to Sophie.
Can I say something? I've got an English name. In actual fact, my first name on my ID. And I used to be like, "Ah, people are not going to be able to pronounce Mmakgosi." I was shocked. I was shocked. People learn, they mastered the art of pronouncing Mmakgosi. And I no longer use my English name, and I'm not going to mention it here on the airways because next thing people are going to be referred. I don't have a problem with that. It's the name that my mom gave me, happy. But I prefer Mmakgosi. You'll be surprised actually.
Yeah, I mean, look, when some people discover that my other name is Letohonolo, they made me teach them, and then some are really good, they know how to pronounce it. But just like you, Sophie is actually my first name on my ID, and I only discovered
Oh,
this name when I think I was 18, when I was about to get my ID, that oh, my other name is Letohonolo. So, but throughout school, at home, everybody uses Sophie. But when I discovered Letohonolo, I loved it. Personally, I prefer it. But we're here now.
okay. Well done on the acquisition of your master's degree. I think for me to say that, that's a journey well traveled. I hope my team can bring those like celebratory screen. Well done. It is quite a huge achievement.
Thank
Welcome to
you.
the show.
Yes.
I'm not gonna.
Thank you.
This is career talk. We're talking all things careers, right? And I would like for you to take us through your journey as a professional and what led to you being a talent acquisition.
Okay, it is quite a journey. Because initially I actually thought I wanted
You
to
can
become a
start first with,
journalist. So,
sorry to interject,
yeah.
Alessandro, perhaps mention where you're from as well. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, mention where you're from, where did you study, and all that jazz.
Yes, so originally I am from Pretoria, Mamelodi, but I was born go Soweto, go Baragwanath Hospital. My mom, Kingwayana Soweto, my dad is from Mamelodi. So in actual fact, I grew up in both townships because majority of the time, every holiday and weekends, would go visit my grandparents in Soweto and then obviously go back home for Mamelodi. But I identify more with Pretoria because that's where my parents' house is. And yeah, and I attended quite a number of schools throughout primary and high school because my dad was a politician. So he kept moving around quite a bit. So we had to move schools. However, when it comes to after high school, I studied media studies at Boston Media House. And because initially I actually thought I wanted to become a journalist because my aunt, who was in advertising and PR, was married to a journalist at that time. So I quite enjoyed journalism. Every time I'd go with him to work, the type of people he met. So I thought, oh, this is what I want. But you know what? Fate had its plans. And after completed my studies, I then went to, I started my journey really in the early 2000 in the education sector as an events coordinator because of the qualification I had. I worked at college campus
Mm.
in Parktown. So that role really was the one that sparked my interest in people development and engagement, which naturally led me into the world of recruitment and human resources. Because part of being an events coordinator for a college is to recruit candidates. So I would also work with the principal. So we also did HR stuff. From there on, I transitioned into a recruitment agency when somebody approached me and thought, look, you could be great for a recruitment agency. And they were looking for, at that time, a receptionist, but eventually they took me as a junior recruiter. And then I registered to also study for with UNISA to study for my HR qualification because I knew that this is where I need to be. This is exactly what I wanted to be. So when I started at Quest, I started as a recruiter. I was there for 5 years, and I left there as a senior recruitment lead. And then I went on to join Communicate Recruitment Agency. These roles really gave me a foundation in sourcing candidates, engagement, and managing end-to-end recruitment processes across various industries. So, and while I'm working, by the way, I'm getting these qualifications because after I was done with my HR diploma, I then did project management, because one thing you need to learn working for recruitment agencies, you work for multiple companies. So you could have Standard Bank, Boardroom, SABC, all of them as your accounts, and you have to recruit for the different positions in all of them. So you really need to learn how to multitask. So I figured out if I can do project management, because half the time I'm just managing projects. So I also did that. And so in 2014, I joined Adcon as an human resources business partner for their international brands, where I supported the Northern region, including Limpopo. This role allowed me to deepen my strategic HR thinking. I managed a team. I got an opportunity to have a team as well and work closely with business leaders on talent strategies. I then moved to the consulting space, which is Accenture, one of my favorite companies I worked for. I worked as a senior analyst there. And there I focused on workforce planning, resource management, and aligning talent supply and client demand, an experience that sharpened my analytical strategic thinking. There was a contract, so once it ended, luckily, a friend of mine told me that there was an opportunity for an FMCG company called Damon, and I joined there as a talent acquisition lead as well as an HR generalist. So I also led a team there. When I joined, they did not have a recruitment function, so I actually had to build and start the whole recruitment department, including putting policies together and finding recruitment agencies to work with and having a team of my own. So on top of that, I contributed to broader HR initiatives, including performance management and employee engagement. Then my next step, I went to work with Philip Morris. I was then based in Cape Town, where I served as a talent acquisition specialist for Africa. I was responsible for the full recruitment cycle. Employer branding was quite big for us there, and digital talent strategies across South Africa. And currently, I'm proud to serve as a TA lead for Takeover Agri-Science. I'm based in Centurion, and in this role, I lead the talent acquisition process for Africa, Middle East, and I manage stakeholder engagement and relationships. I contribute to global projects that shape our employer brand and talent strategies, because I do report into Europe. And through my journey, I've also remained committed to giving back. I volunteer as a career coach for different local government schools since 2013. I help young people navigate their career paths, and yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I've done. That's my background.
Beautiful background that you've got. I just need to tell people that she's also on TikTok. She provides free advice on TikTok on just the recruitment journey. But Letahonole, tell me about what does a day in the life of a talent acquisition lead looks like?
Yes. So as a TA lead, for short, we call it TA, professional, my day is a dynamic mix of strategic planning and a hands-on engagement. I partner closely with hiring managers to understand their talent needs. I design recruitment strategies for them. I ensure we attract the right candidates. I also focus on enhancing the candidate experience by promoting inclusive hiring practice, which is really big for our organization, especially because I'm in the agricultural space. So we still have a long way to go when it comes to diversity and inclusiveness. So and aligning efforts with the broader goals of the business, because obviously the business also has its own goals that we need to attain. So it's about more than just filling roles. It's about building teams that thrive, in a nutshell.
Okay. All right, let's give you a breather or give ourselves a breather. We are going to go for a short break. And when we come back, we dive into the real stuff, the process that many people are going to undergo if they have not undergone. And that is just the process of looking for a secure job. We'll be back.
All right, perfect.
Hello, Africa. Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Welcome back to Career Talk. You're still with me, Mmakgosi. With me, I've got Khonolo, Ditseho Manka, lead at a multinational company, and she is taking us through the talent acquisition journey. So what happens to what sets a candidate, right? We're asking other questions, but I think high level, that's what we are trying to get to. Before we get into the skills that employers want, from your perspective, what does turning skills into sustainable field of work, particularly today?
Look, to me, it means leveraging your abilities, whether formal qualification or informal experience, to create consistent long-term value in the workplace. It's about being adaptable, continuously learning, which is very important, and aligning your skills with what the market needs so that you remain employable and can build a career that supports your goals and lifestyle.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I want us to unpack this question. I asked this question when we were preparing over the weekend. I think it must have been Sunday. And I said to you, can you hear me? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can
All
hear
right,
you.
super. So perfect. When we're doing prep work, that you need to take us through the back end journey. Right? A candidate submits their application online. It could be LinkedIn, Workday, Smart Starter, or recruitment application. What happens at the back end? I know there's also an ATS system that analyzes or reads. What happens? Please take us through that journey. Let's get that out of the way. Are curious, and not just out of I think many people have applied for so many jobs, asking themselves what actually happened to that CV. They might have gotten the application, they might not have gotten it. What do you guys as a team in the background do when you extend an interview or the big rejection now that your teams are very synonymous?
Yes. Absolutely. Once a candidate submits their application on any of the ATS system, for instance, Workday is quite popular now. It's one of the current ones that we are also using. But obviously, each organization or industry, like for instance, in banking, they use a different ATS system, but it's called an ATS system. There's a structured process that happens behind the scenes and to ensure a smooth and fair recruitment lifestyle or life cycle rather. So the first thing is that we have what we call an application review. First, the application lands in our system where the TA team reviews it against the job requirements. We assess things like your qualification, experience, and how well the candidate aligns with the role. And now, in actual fact, because AI has really taken over, it has also taken over TA as well. So AI is also part of our ATS system. What it then does for us to make our lives a little easy, because remember, for just one position, we could be receiving anything up to 5,000 applications, depending on what the role is. And it's not easy for one or two people to go through all the CVs. So what AI does is that it has now a ranking system for us. It will read all the top CVs, all the top CVs that have the right qualification or experience, whatever it is that we put on the ad, it will then move them to the top. So we already know, and then it gives them star ratings. So if you're a 5 out of 5, it means that you met all the minimum criteria. If you're a 4, it means then one thing is missing. So it makes our lives easy. So after that, we go into shortlisting. If the candidate meets the criteria, then they are shortlisted and moved to the next stage. This could involve assessments, screening calls, or directly scheduling interviews depending on the role, because every role is different. From there on, the shortlisted profiles after talent acquisition has shortlisted are shared with the hiring manager, who reviews them and selects the candidates that they'd like to meet. So we could shortlist 10, and then the hiring manager comes back and says, okay, I just want to see these 5. And then after the interviews, once the interviews are completed and concluded, depending on the number of round of interviews we conduct, we gather the feedback from all the panel members. If a candidate is successful, we move into the offer stage, where we prepare the offer package and get the necessary approvals. And mind you, by the time you go for an interview, we would have already gotten your information in terms of your salary, your current salary, and your salary expectation. So once we get to a point where you're a successful candidate, we already know how to structure your offer, and then we'll share that offer with you. Once you accept and the offer has been approved, we extend it to the candidate. We extend the offer to the candidate, and then you accept it. Then we begin the onboarding process, which includes background checks, documentation, and preparing for your first day. So that is what goes on in the background. It's quite a lot. So the process is quite long for us, but we make sure that we prioritize communication, fairness, and candidate experience, ensuring that every applicant feels informed and respected. And mind you, just because we cannot get back to every single candidate, this is why we have automated emails. So for candidates that did not go through the process of being shortlisted, this is why you get an automated reject letter. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, it sounds like the obvious question. I know the listeners want. Why do you guys ask for salary slips? Why? Potential document
Yeah.
between, people and their current. Why is that?
Yes. Look, even I don't enjoy that process. If I have to go for an interview and I'm asked for my payslip, I don't like it. But because this is what I do on a daily basis, there's numerous reasons, but the main reason why your payslip, we need your payslip firstly, especially because in most cases, this is how it needs to happen. Your payslip needs to be, we need to ask you for your payslip as soon as we shortlist you, before you even go to be interviewed by the hiring manager. This is to see if you are within our budget, because we don't want to interview someone only in the end after we've wasted time to find out that you are way too expensive and over budget. So that's the reason why we want your payslip. Another reason would also to look at what your structured benefits look like, because benefits are very different. So if we get to offer stage, we need to make sure this is a lucrative and an offer that you're really going to be happy about. Because if I don't understand how your benefits are structured and what your net pay is, I may prepare an offer only to find out that I just gave you a 3% increase. Because in most cases, as employers, we want to give you something between 10 to 15% increase so that you are excited to join the organization and actually stay. So it's mainly for that, to make sure we offer you the right offer. And with some organizations, they use it just as a benchmark, just to see what their competitors are offering, so that when our benefits team, they start preparing for new grades to whether increase the new grades, they can just look what is in the market. Are we aligned with what they're offering? Should we maybe increase for this grade, salary grade? So yeah, it's really different reasons behind wanting your payslip. It's not to underpay you, because a lot of people think, oh, you want my payslip so that you know how much to pay me. No, that's not the real reason.
It's called to low people. You're asked low ball a candidate. That's the reason why there's always a
Look, I can't.
backlash around. I mean, I do understand. Okay, Letlhogonolo, can you still hear me? Are you still with me?
Mhm.
It appears we've got,
Yes.
yeah, there is somewhat of a delay. I'm not sure if it's my side or your side. Let's just move, because I know the pay one, yeah, it's a contentious issue, but I mean, I have provided grounds, sufficient grounds to say this, and it makes sense. It lands for me. That's the reason makes sense, because you would not also want to put a candidate through a rigorous process only to be like, oh, we can't afford this person. You've wasted their time. You've wasted your resources. Okay.
Yes.
So skills, right?
Mm.
What currently prioritizing when?
Yeah, that's a good question, because employers are increasingly looking for a blend of technical proficiency and human-centric skills. Like, key areas will include, obviously, number one, digital literacy and data analysis. That's very important. The second thing, adaptability and resilience, because a lot of organizations keep evolving and changing, and that is quite important to have. The third one would be critical thinking and problem solving. And the fourth one, collaboration and communication. And of course, finally, a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion. Those are the top, skills that we are now looking for.
Okay. We're going to pause there, and we're going to, when we're back, we are going to be diving a bit deeper, asking, or rather, how can job seekers position their skills if to stand out? We'll be back shortly.
Yeah.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event, designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Welcome back, Career Talk. You're with me, Mmakgosi. I've got Letlhogonolo Ditshego Mankae, who's a talent acquisition lead at a multinational company, and she is taking us through the recruitment journey. What are the skills that employers want, and what set from others, which then lands them an offer letter. Letlhogonolo, welcome back. In terms of how can job seekers position their skills effectively to stand out in a very competitive market? And let me just highlight the competitiveness, right? How does it stand out practically?
Look, I always tell people that, it's personal branding is very, very important. And I think your previous caller, rather the lady that you interviewed, I caught her just a bit. She spoke about personal branding as well. You need to start by clearly articulating your value, what you bring to the table that's unique. So, for instance, how you do that, you tailor your CV and LinkedIn profile to highlight your achievements. A lot of people, their mistakes that they do is they copy their responsibilities and paste them into their CVs and their LinkedIn profile. Try and look at all your list of achievements and put them there so you can shine, because that's some of the things that we look at, because there are so many people that have probably walked the same journey as you, studied the same thing, have done the same thing. So what makes you stand out? So the difference here, make sure you highlight your achievements, use action verbs, quantify your impact, and align your experience with the job requirement. Also, don't underestimate the power of networking. That is so important, and personal branding. And the reason I also emphasize on the power of networking, there were 2 jobs previously that I got. I didn't even have to apply for them. I got a call from people that I knew in the industry. They said, hey, I think you'd be great for this position. They don't want to advertise because they want people that are qualified, and I think you meet the job spec. I sent my CV, went for an interview, and got the job. So the power of networking is so important. And how one does that, go to industry events, on LinkedIn. What I love about LinkedIn now is that, if you follow the right, look at the type of organizations within your industry that you probably would like to work for, or know they're quite big, and just follow them. Look at the events that they have that you can go and attend. And this is where you start mingling and networking with people. And that's how people get to remember who you are. And even when you are working at any job, never take a job as just a job, because that is where sometimes some of your greatest networks come from some of the people that you work with, because you could be working with someone as a colleague, and tomorrow go on to become a leader. So it's very important that you nurture those relationships with the people that you work with from the time you actually study, because you just never know where anyone is going to end up. Nurture those relationships, professional relationships, because those are the ones that are actually going to get you ahead. Networking is so important. So that's what I would say, honestly.
Okay. Now, when you review candidates, right? Earlier on, we had Kilebogile, who took us through soft skills. You can't talk about landing a role before you talk about matching the right technical skills to soft skills. So my question to you is that when you review candidates, what role compared to technical qualifications? Do you hire for attitude?
Yes and no. So soft skills are just as important, if not more so, than technical skills. While qualification gets you noticed, it's your communication, emotional intelligence, and your ability to collaborate that often determines your success in any role. So we look for candidates who do not only meet the technical criteria, but also demonstrate adaptability, leadership potential, and a growth mindset. That's what we look for.
Yeah. But how do you, how do you that a person has got soft skills? Because I mean, let's be honest, you are in an interview. My husband calls it, he's probably listening in as I say this, overselling yourself, right? You're saying the right things, you've read the right books, but there's actually a lived experience where people have to experience working with you. So if you are
Yeah.
a hiring manager or part of talent acquisition, and you're sitting in that interview panel, demonstrates that this person has got the necessary soft skills to thrive.
Look, it's to be fair and honest, it is very difficult to get that from just an interview, because people come prepared and they rehearse. So you don't really know if this is their authentic selves or this is just the interview Sophie that I'm sitting in front of. This is why we then have things such as assessments, which also help us a bit, just a bit, not too much though. And then the most important part, it's the reference checking. This is where you have to be very detailed when you do a reference check. Um, the previous employer, and double checking, because people have become quite smart, right? Sometimes they'll just put a colleague that they were very close to, or even a friend and a family member who didn't even work at that organization. So it's important for us to do our due diligence. This is LinkedIn profiles matter. So if somebody says I worked at Coca-Cola in this department and I reported to so and so, you also need to go, and because what we then sometimes do is we inbox those people that we see on LinkedIn, that we know that that's the right manager, to say, hi, I'm doing a reference check on so and so. Do you know this person? Is this the correct number? What time can I call you? And there you can ask the questions, about personality, any other thing, behavioral. That's where you really can get some of the answers that you're looking for.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Now, many young people have informal kind of work, or should I call it side hustle gigs? How can they present that to employers or potential employers for that matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Gig work and informal experience are incredibly valuable as well. The key is to translate those experiences into transferable skills. For example, managing clients as a freelancer shows initiative, time management, and customer service. So use your CV or interviews to tell the story, emphasize outcomes, challenges you've overcame, and what you learned. That's exactly how you can use it.
All right. And then how do you cross-reference these side hustle or informal experiences, right? The previous questioner asked you, well, we spoke about reference checks, conducting your due diligence to ensure that a particular candidate has indeed worked for a particular organization under division A, B, and C, under which leader, right? But when it comes to in front of experience, how do you conduct your due diligence to say that indeed this person did this and these are the skills that they were able to acquire?
With everything, it's a risk that we take. We take your word for it in most cases. This is why we are very detailed when we ask you questions. There'll be a follow-up question after a follow-up question to really see that you really understand and know exactly what you are answering. You're not just thumb sucking a response. And sometimes if, let's say, for instance, if someone that works on social media, they can then show us maybe a portfolio of the things that they've done, their clients. So really, it's a case by case depending on the roles, really. But with that, it is very difficult to do a reference check on it. The only thing you can do is interview this person, put them through an assessment, and based on that, decide on the person that you like.
All right, okay. Makes sense. And the final question before we go to an ad break, how can candidates continuously adapt to remain employable as industries evolve? I mean, are we in the 4IR age? There's a huge anxieties around jobs. So jobs that are currently being done by human beings being replaced by robot machinery. How do professionals themselves to be relevant to future-proof
Yes,
careers? Yeah.
that's a very good question. And lifelong learning is essential, honestly. You cannot just graduate and get your highest qualification. I think this is it, I'm done. So you have to invest in lifelong learning. Stay curious and be proactive. Take online courses. There's a lot of online courses that are free that you now can take. Attend workshops, seek mentorship, and stay informed about trends in your industry. Also, be open to feedback and new experiences. People are always scared of feedback, and this is where you actually grow. And the ability to evolve with change in skill in itself. That is my advice. So continue staying curious.
Okay. All right. Let's just take a break. We will continue afterwards.
Thank you.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity.
Welcome back to Career Talk. It's Mmakgosi. With me, I've got Letlogonolo Ditseho Mankai, who's a talent acquisition lead at a multinational company. And she has been taking us through the recruitment journey. What do employers look for? How does a candidate set themselves apart and position themselves, for the role which they are eyeing? As we continue, what are some of the candidates make that prevent from turning their skills into a steady income? I'm sure you've seen lots of those.
Yes, Mmakgosi, one of the common mistakes is undervaluing your informal experience or failing to communicate it effectively. Another one is tailoring your applications, not tailoring your applications, rather. Sending the same CV to every job won't work. You have to tailor make your CV. This is why I tell people you have to have a minimum of 3 CVs. So you cannot have just one. Lastly, some candidates focus too much on what they want rather than how they can add value to their employer. Those are common mistakes. Can't hear
And
you.
how do you help? Segment of the show. You can't hear me. Am I audible
Okay, I
now?
can hear you now. I can hear you.
The joys of
Yes.
being online and being live. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
So I
I
was
can.
saying to you that in the previous segment, we spoke quite in length about feedback on the candidates. So after an interview, particularly those who've made it to your offices, your virtual room, and have gone through the interview process, do you provide them with feedback in terms of why they were declined, and
Mhm.
how does that feedback take place?
So I'm going to speak for myself because I do know a lot of organizations and a lot of recruiters or hiring managers still don't do that. After interview, if you didn't make it, you didn't make it, which I think it's unfair and it's a terrible candidate experience. So for our organization, it's very important, especially if you've made it through to the interview, have been shortlisted. We do let you know. For instance, if there's something we picked up, if there's something we feel you're lacking, you can work on, we give you a thorough feedback to say, look, you were great. We obviously start with the compliments and thereafter tell you on things that you can work on. And there's been instances where you find you have the best candidates, you find it so difficult to know who to hire. And you end up with one, maybe because they're more of a culture fit more than anything. And not that the other two, there's anything they need to improve on. And you do tell them to say, look, they were just there was absolutely nothing wrong with you. In fact, if we had 3 more positions, you'd probably be hired into the role. So I go into detail because I schedule a 15-minute call with candidates when I have to regret them so that it gives you an opportunity to also ask me questions. So that I definitely do.
Mm. All right. It's themselves. I'm asking for our listeners, and we might have listeners who are parents. We might have listeners who are looking for employment. Should they ask for the feedback, or should they just take a rejection email as it's done? I know I'm being harsh with saying rejection
No.
email, but it is, let's call it a decline email.
Look, it is very important, especially in the early years of your career. I feel that is the only feedback is important. I also mentioned that on one of the answers that I gave you, because how else are you going to improve? How else are you going to know what you need to work on if you're not open to feedback? So it's very important to ask for feedback. You can even ask it via email, because sometimes what happens is that in a call, the first thing you hear is, unfortunately, you have been unsuccessful. And when I go into the details why, your mind has just shut down because you're so disappointed. So once they do give you that feedback on the phone, for instance, you can then say, can you please follow this up with an email? Then they will write you an email. But if you also haven't heard anything, because some people do not give calls back, follow up and say, hi, can you please let me know what I need to improve on? What can I work on? What was the feedback from the hiring team if the person was not sitting in that interview? So it's very important.
Okay. All right. Super. Similar to that I asked you before, that is, how can organizations better support employees to develop skills to ensure their long-term career sustainability?
Oh, I love this because I'm all about that. So organizations should invest in continuous learning, provide clear and career pathways, and this is this is your line manager's responsibility as well, and foster a culture of inclusive feedback. It's also important to support cross-functional exposure so employees can build diverse skill sets and grow within the business. That is what I truly believe organizations should be investing in.
All right. I'm going to ask that we take a break, and when we are back, we will just close off show with Letlogonolo. We'll be back.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. It's more than just an expo. It's a blueprint for Africa's future. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center. 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, 20 boot camps. Career Indaba, where skills meet opportunities.
Welcome back. It's Mmakgosi. This is we're actually in our final hour of the show. I've got Letlogonolo. Letlogonolo, if you could piece of advice to someone who's trying to build a sustainable career path, what would it be?
Yeah. Own your growth. No one owes you anything. Be intentional about your development, seek opportunities, ask for feedback, and don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Your career is a journey, and the more proactive you are, the more empowered you'll be to grow as well. And this will shape you.
Okay. Thank you for
And
that. And
I just
I
want
need to ask you.
Yeah.
You can
No, continue.
No, I want to say,
Oh, I wanted
whilst
to.
you're on this feedback,
Yeah.
we're experiencing feedback. So as I'm talking, you're talking. But you can go just with your final.
Yeah, so my final thought was just based on what makes a candidate stand out and become a successful one, right? In my experience of 18, if not 19 years, the candidate that truly stands out are those that bring a well-rounded combination of technical competency and strong interpersonal skills, right? Firstly, they have to demonstrate a clear understanding of the role and the company. And what they have to have done their homework and can articulate how their experience aligns with the business need. So this is why research is important about the organization. They don't just repeat what's on their CV, they tell a compelling story about their journey, about their achievements, and how they've added value in previous roles. Secondly, soft skills make a huge difference. Communication, adaptability, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is very important, and collaboration are often what sets candidate apart, especially in team-driven environments. So we're not just hiring for skill, we are hiring for a culture fit, as I mentioned, and potential as well. Lastly, what stands out from a candidate, you need to show curiosity and you have to have a growth mindset because we're hiring future leaders, not just for that particular role that we are hiring for. So, and someone that asks thoughtful questions. So, at the end of the interview, they'll say, do you have any questions? That is your moment to shine. You really need to ask thoughtful questions because that shows a willingness to learn and you are open to feedback. And it tells us that you're not just looking for a job, you are looking to grow and continue and contribute in a meaningful manner into that organization.
Super. Your opinion on sponsors as well as coaches. I hear this word a lot. We need to find a sponsor. You need to find a coach. Maybe if you can share with us the difference between the two, and then let us know the importance of either or. Or is it either or?
Sure. I'm always two ways about this because I truly do believe in having sponsors and having mentors slash coaches. But knowing what I know, and someone that grew up in townships and knowing people that come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, they do not have access to where do I find this coach? How do I get a hold of this? And this is why I think we need to have organizations or non-profit organizations that can come together and bring these amazing leaders, people of color and females who can be easily accessible with people can just, select someone and say, I want Sophie to become a mentor. Because I think it's so important, especially before entering the workforce. Because the reality is a lot of us, once we start working, we get the shock of our lives because we have a different idea what corporate truly looks like. And we really need people to walk the path to help us and hold our hand and really prepare us on what's to come. So for me, mentorship is very important. But look, if you don't ever get an opportunity to get a mentor, as soon as you enter corporate or any space, try and identify someone that's a leader that's thriving, that you look up to and say, look, can you be my mentor? Half of the time, they'll say yes. It's very difficult for people to just say no, but you need to also be prepared to be mentored and let them know what it is that you'd like to be mentored at. Sponsorship as well is very important. And organizations are different. There's some organizations that are very much set in a way that, for instance, our organization does have sponsors because they believe in that, especially because we have a graduate program. So as soon as you enter our graduate program already, you'll have a sponsor. And these are the people that speak for you in rooms that you're not in, And so both of them, I'm an advocate for both. And I think they're equally just as important because what matters is that you find the right coach and the right sponsor that believes in you, and so it has to really be a partnership of two individuals that understand what the long-term goal of this particular person, I'm looking for a particular word now, a mentee is looking for. So they're very important. So as soon as you enter the working space, just try and identify one and reach out to them and tell them what your long-term goal is. And hopefully they can help accelerate your career.
Super. Sure. You've really took us through the journey of recruitment, of the recruitment process. I think many people are always on rejection letters. I'm gonna not rejection letters, rejection emails. But let me refund an opportunity. You're not rejected. Okay. For joining us on Career Indaba Radio, as well as really appreciate your time as well as the insights that you shared. Stuff. Thank you so much. I'm just going to close off as well because it is 12. Thank you so much to the listeners, as well as all our guests, Monet, Kilebogile, as well as Letrohonolo for coming and sharing their knowledge, their experience with us. Feels empowered um, after the show, and you can the knowledge that you have gained to another the information just for yourself, but to another young person who needs it so that they're able to access opportunity. It has been great being your host. Kani and the team will let me know if there will be a name. I was nervous, but we got through the show. We got through 3 hours. Done. It was exciting. Have yourself